Hey guys, I want to do a quick segment on what happened in Wisconsin. Within the last couple of days, there's been a car that plowed into a Christmas Day parade in Waukesha City. And the Waukesha City and the police and the Waukesha County officials are investigating this. We know that the gentleman, they've apprehended a suspect, and we know that gentleman plowed into a crowd with his vehicle and ended up killing 5 people in the Christmas parade and injuring up to 43 others. 48 total have been injured, including 18 kids. This is a complete tragedy. It doesn't make sense a lot of times why these things happen. We don't know why they happen, but it's the type of thing that can really change, everything for you if you're involved in a situation like that, especially at this time of year. I mean, we're getting into Thanksgiving, getting into the holiday season for Christmas. It's a time to give thanks, a time to appreciate what we have. But at the same time, we can't forget, there's the world out there, and bad things happen in this world. And not everything goes for everybody like it may for us. The gentleman that did this obviously is very troubled. I'm going to pray for him and his family and all the families of the injured and those that were killed during this event. But I wanted to talk about, one, taking things for granted, and also risks, just everyday risks of living. There's so many things that we take for granted every day that maybe we shouldn't. And taking a minute to think about, what could happen. Have you set out your plan? Do you know your plan for if something like this happens? If you get injured, or one of your loved ones, God forbid, gets injured in an event like this, what do you do? And do you have plans for that? Do you have, stuff like your will set out? Do you have emergency plans for your kids if something happens to you and you're in the hospital? Do you know where your kids are all the time? If they're in this parade and they've gone with their friends, do you have a way to contact them? Do you have a cell phone, a way to make sure that they're safe? Do you, if something really bad happens, do you have a rendezvous point where you guys can meet up, make sure everybody's safe and is okay? Now, those types of things, are things that we do on the channel. We like to plan financially. We also like to talk about what do we do in cases like this? And I also wanted to make the point that we're seeing a lot of this violence tick up. We've seen a lot of these events tick up. We've had protests and demonstrations due to the political cycle the last few years. We've had a lot of people showing their dissatisfaction with the system, how they don't feel like they're being accounted for. And I think this stems from a couple of things. One, their perceived political representation in the political system, but also the financial disparity that we see happening between the ultra wealthy and the poor middle classes. And how I talked about on this channel, the middle classes, basically their wealth being destroyed over time. And when that happens, and they don't feel like they're being represented politically, culturally, and financially by the people that are in Washington, D.C., how it can cause more unrest. Now, I don't know the reasons why this gentleman plowed into the Christmas Day parade. I mean, obviously, he was a troubled gentleman. Maybe this has to do with mental health issues. Maybe it has to do with some statement he was trying to make. I mean, you never know in a case like this. They're still investigating. I don't want to speculate on this, but at the end of the day, this is not an isolated event. We see a lot of events like this, people being frustrated and angry, and pulling out a weapon or taking a drug and stabbing people with a drug at a concert. We saw that recently. I mean, if you're going out to a gathering right now, it's not like it was 20 or 30 years ago when I was growing up. Times have completely changed. It's not always safe to be in public places. It's not safe to be in go to a sports venue and stadiums. It's not necessarily safe to be in a concert. I mean, it's not even safe to be in a Christmas Day parade. And it's really just, it's just different than it used to be a generation ago. And this generation growing up right now has got to deal with a completely different set of risk factors and potential, events than we had to deal with when I was growing up. It's horrifically sad. I feel for those families that are suffering, and I feel for this gentleman who's troubled and his family they're dealing with this right now and trying to figure out how to get this guy some help and to deal with this situation, assuming he's guilty. I mean, he's been apprehended. We don't want to assume guilt, but assuming the authorities have caught the right guy. But it's one of those things that you just look back on. This time of year, you want to reflect and be thankful for what you have, that you're healthy and that you're safe, but just don't take too much for granted. We don't know what the future may bring. We talk all the time about financial risk on the channel. What about risks like this? What about a risk of getting injured at an innocent event, just going to a Christmas Day parade. We have right down the street from where I live, we have an annual Christmas Day parade and celebration right down Main Street. It's very popular. People come from all around the world, and I'm considering this year maybe not, going out, maybe not taking the family to that, or if we do go, just kind of making sure we're in the safer end. The problem is we don't know if it's going to be somebody plowing a car, if it's going to be somebody bringing a gun, that may not be mentally stable or maybe frustrated with what's going on in the world. And I think as risk rises, I think as the economic inequality rises, I think as people don't feel like they're being represented by their government, and the government is passing all these policies, locking people down and mandating this and mandating that, while at the same time spending like drunken sailors and destroying our financial future. Yeah, I think that there's going to be more of this. And I've talked with people that I respect that understand political history, have degrees in political science, political history, that say they expect what's going on to increase. They expect more unrest to happen before we resolve all these problems. In other words, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I hate to bring you that news, especially in light of this tragedy. But it's during these tragedies we need to talk about that. We need to talk about what's going on in society. We need to highlight the problems in society. Now, this gentleman may have just had a mental issue. It may be a one-off situation. But in the context of all the things that have happened the last few years, we need to have these open conversations. We need to talk about what's going on. We need to educate ourselves on why the problems are happening, who's causing the problems, and then we need to come together as society. What I don't want to see is us divide each other and attack each other because of different racial differences or prejudicial differences or political differences or cultural differences. What's always made this country strong is the fact that we could work together, come together across our various backgrounds and support one another and come together and make decisions that we can all live with. And I think this is a critical time in our nation's history that we need to do that. And we need to be very aware of what's going on around us, and we need to protect each other, and we need to protect our families. And when stuff like this happens, pray, and whatever religion that you are, pray for the people, pray for the gentleman that did this, that he gets the help that he needs, that God will help him, pray for his family, pray for the families of those injured and killed, pray for Waukesha, the city and the county and the state of Wisconsin that's dealing with this horrible tragedy right now, but then turn our attention to what could be causing this. What are the causal factors? What is the root cause of all this unrest and all of these violent acts that we've been seeing? What's causing this? I would argue economic inequality, political disconnection from the political elite and the people, the rise of super corporations and banks and the concentration of money and power into a few, and just us getting away from made this country great. Political compromise, the Constitution, the rights that protected our freedoms, and those types of things. And that's what we need to be discussing here is what is the bigger picture? Mourn for the families that have the loss. Take a moment to mourn and pray for them, but then talk about the bigger picture and look at what we're doing to ourselves and look at what's happening to our country and to peaceful Christmas Day celebrations. And, what are the consequences if we keep going down this road? Are we going to come together, or is it going to be a division point in our country? Are we going to continue to allow these things to divide us, or are we going to use it as a catalyst to bring it together and have those positive conversations? Just my thoughts on the whole tragedy. I've been watching this the last 24 hours in sadness and praying for the family, but thinking, what is the bigger picture here and what is the opportunity for us here? And I think it's an opportunity every time something like this happens for us to have a conversation and come together. And hopefully we can get rid of all the things that divide us, or at least compromise through them and talk about them and find ways that we can come together as a nation. Because I don't know about you guys, but I love this nation. I love all the people in it. And I want it to be safe for my kids and for the next few generations. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But I think we got to start having this conversation. Prayers go out to Waukesha City, to the county, the state of Wisconsin, everybody dealing with this tragedy. Hopefully we see no more tragedies going into the holiday season. I hope all of your families are safe at Thanksgiving and at Christmas and at New Year's. And I hope you have a blessed holiday season here.